Once upon a time, I looked at an old picture of me when I was 2 years old. And I looked at that little boy and I thought, boy, there's something unusual about him. He just had this sort of vacant look. And I thought, well, that's strange. But I didn't find out until many years later, probably 55 or something like that, or 56 years old, that all of the difficulties that I had through my life was based on the fact that I had a special condition called Asperger. So the way it happened was that I finally tried to teach, and when I taught, it just simply didn't work. I could teach the particularly interested kids, but I couldn't teach the weak kids. I couldn't teach the kids that just was taking the math or the physics for credit. And so I finally figured out that I had to go and find out what the story was. Why was it so difficult to work in those fields when I had done so well in other areas, such as writing software for scientists. And you know, I figured if I can write software for scientists and use my physics background, I could do just about everything. But it's not true. I lacked a very important thing, and that had to do with social skills. And I, in fact, was in a very protected environment all of those years when I was working for scientists, because scientists are a little bit odd also. And they could be forgiving of my idiosyncrasies. Well, so maybe I should start at the beginning of how it was when I was a child. And this is all in retrospect, because back then I just thought, well, life is a little bit difficult, but I get along. And people would say I was a little bit odd and a little bit bright, but I was only bright in a certain small area. I didn't have so many friends, but I had a mom that was just really good. And again, I was protected. So what it was that oftentimes I just wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know how to be with other friends. And I had very, very good friends, but only a very few. Mostly it was those friends that were interested in the things that I was interested in. And when I got interested in something, I was really good at it. And when I wasn't, I basically failed. And I wasn't interested in school until math and physics came along, and then, boy, was that great. I loved math and I loved physics, especially from high school, and I finally got it together. And I loved English after I figured out that it was a mathematical language just like mathematics was. When I studied physics at the university, a professor said to me, "Physics is the study of everything interesting." And I bought that. And man, that was it. I was a physicist. I could do nothing else but physics and math, because physics is essentially applied math. But when it came to the social stuff, I couldn't do it. Didn't have a lot of friends. I had one or two really close friends, until my first wife came along, and she just cemented all the friendships together, and she pretty much handled it. And again, I was protected from the real world. That went along, and then I had my what do you call it? My time of being single again, and doing all sorts of wonderful things like windsurfing and carpentry and things like that. And again, I just had a few friends, but it seemed to work. I finally got into providing software for scientists as a profession and as an engineer, and I had my own company. Again, there I was protected because I was back working with scientists and developing all kinds of fantastic software. When I finally came to Sweden, I had to rely on my skills, as my social skills, and I had to be able to get a job. So when I would come and I would try to interview, I was turned down repeatedly. I was turned down because I had done too much. I was turned down because I must have been lying on my CV for having done so much. I was turned down because I was a bit odd in the interview. So that was the beginning of about 10 years of feeling outside of society. Eventually, I thought it wasn't my fault, it was Sweden's fault. There were just a lot of prejudiced people here. And I thought all kinds of negative thoughts like that, but it turned out not to be true. I went back to the United States and I tried teaching and really messed things up, and that's where our story started, that I found out that I actually had a diagnosis, and Asperger. So now, you know, that certification is very important, especially in Sweden. So now I'm certified crazy, and that's cool because I discovered this wonderful company called Left is Right. What Left is Right can do is it protects the people on the inside. It accommodates for their skills and their weaknesses. And they have as a promise the ability to draw out the best of people and at the same time communicate clearly and directly so that we are careful to go past any weaknesses, any social weaknesses. So we accommodate for each other. Well, Left is Right has just begun, and I'm in on the ground floor, so I'm project leader, and it means that I can continue my career from the United States within the protected environment that's provided by Klaus and Nicholas and others. What it means is that it's absolutely delightful. I can go back to applying computers to whatever. Physics is the study of everything interesting, including economics and banking or whatever happens to come along. And I can just do that. At the same time, since I have this special diagnosis, and since I've lived with it all my life, I happen to be rather good at working with these people and drawing out their best. Other people who are like myself. So it is an absolutely fantastic social experience that I'm in, a social experiment, in which we have to communicate intentionally. We have to communicate clearly to one another to make sure that there is not the miscommunication that often goes with Asperger's syndrome. And we have to make sure that we have a tremendous amount of goodwill out of an intention to have goodwill, so that we have a wonderful workplace, because we simply will not operate in a stressful environment. That means that this work promises to be as delightful as any research laboratory one can think of working within. Working with delightful, brilliant people, brilliant perhaps because they are narrowly focused, but brilliant nevertheless. And also some of the nicest people I've ever met.